Pa, that lady's dying. The words cut through the dusty air of Dust Ridge like a knife. Thomas Buck Harlan's calloused hand tightened around his daughter's small fingers. 4-year-old Emma's golden curls bounced as she pointed to the shadow-draped corner of the livestock market. There, barely visible against the weathered post, a woman hung in chains. Blood crusted along her temple. Her dress, once white perhaps, was torn and filthy. Iron shackles bit into raw wrists, the skin beneath rubbed, angry and red. Her dark hair hung like a curtain, obscuring a face that hadn't known kindness in months. Buck's jaw tightened. He'd seen death before, too much of it during the war between the states, and he recognized its approaching shadow. The livestock market bustled around them, men haggling over cattle prices, spitting tobacco and laughing. No one spared a glance for the woman in chains. She wasn't livestock. She wasn't even human to them, just property. "Stay here, Emma," Buck instructed, resting his hand instinctively on the walnut grip of his Remington revolver. He approached the trader nearby, a weasel-faced man with tobacco-stained teeth. "The woman, she yours?" The trader spat, missing Buck's boots by inches. "Nah, belonged to her brother. Danny Morgan's property. He owed more than he could pay." He jerked his chin toward her. "She's what's left, barely breathing, not worth much now." Buck studied the woman. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, irregular breaths. "How much?" The trader's eyes widened slightly. "You serious? How much to unchain her and get her on a horse?" $5. Buck reached into his coat and counted the coins. The trader pocketed them quickly, keys jingling as he moved toward the post. "Word of warning," the trader muttered as he unlocked the shackles. "She belongs to Danny Morgan. He'll come looking for what's his." The woman collapsed like a broken marionette, falling into Buck's arms. She was feverish, frighteningly light, as though the chains had been the only thing keeping her upright. Emma approached cautiously, eyes wide with concern. "What's her name, Pa?" The trader shrugged. "Didn't give one. Didn't ask." Buck lifted the woman onto his horse, settling behind her. "Her name's her own, not for us to give." As they rode out of Dust Ridge, Buck felt eyes on his back. Word would spread. Thomas Harlan, the reclusive rancher of Triple H, had purchased a chained woman. The whispers would begin by nightfall. They were barely a mile out when 3 riders appeared on the ridge ahead. Buck recognized trouble before he saw their faces. "Emma," he said calmly, "remember what I taught you about riding Pepper?" The girl nodded solemnly. "If I tell you to run, you ride straight for home. Logan will be watching. Understand?" "Yes, Pa." The riders approached, dust kicking up behind them. The lead man touched the brim of his hat in mock politeness. "Afternoon, Harlan. Interesting purchase you made." Buck's expression remained stone. "Road's wide enough for passing, gentlemen. Thing is," the leader continued, hand hovering near his holster, "I believe you're carrying stolen property. Danny Morgan wants his sister back." Buck felt the woman stir against his chest, a tremor running through her broken body. Sister, not property. "Funny," Buck replied, voice like gravel. "I have a receipt that says different." The moment stretched taut as a bowstring. Buck counted heartbeats, calculating odds. 3 guns against his 1, with Emma and the injured woman to protect. The leader's hand twitched toward his gun. Buck's Remington cleared leather before the man's fingers touched his holster. The shot echoed across the valley, sending birds scattering from nearby trees. The leader fell backward off his horse, a red stain blooming across his chest. "Emma, ride!" Buck shouted, drawing a second pistol from his saddlebag. 2 more shots rang out. The second rider clutched his shoulder and wheeled his horse around. The third raised his hands in surrender before following his companion in retreat, leaving their fallen leader in the dust. Buck holstered his smoking pistol and turned to see Emma waiting just 20 yards back, eyes wide but steady. The woman in his arms had watched the entire exchange, her fever-bright eyes suddenly focused, assessing. "It's all right now," Buck said, though he knew it wasn't. It was just beginning. The Triple H Ranch sprawled across 200 acres of Arizona territory, nestled against the foothills where pine forest met desert. The main house stood solid and weathered, built by Buck's own hands after the war. Smoke curled from the chimney as they approached, a sign that Logan was keeping watch. Logan Gibson stepped onto the porch, shotgun resting in the crook of his arm. His gray-streaked beard couldn't hide the frown that formed when he spotted the additional rider. "Trouble follows you like a shadow, Buck," Logan said, helping lift the unconscious woman from the saddle. "Trouble was already coming," Buck replied. "This just speeds things up." They settled the woman in the spare room, once meant for guests that never came. Buck hadn't welcomed visitors since Mary died 2 years ago. Her body returned to the earth in the small family plot behind the orchard. Apache raiders had taken her while he was in town. He tracked them for 3 weeks but returned empty-handed, with only guilt and rage for company. Logan tended to the woman's wounds with practiced hands, the same hands that had patched up Buck dozens of times during their shared days of danger. "She won't last the night," Logan predicted grimly. Buck watched from the doorway as Emma carefully placed her small rag doll beside the woman's pillow. "She will," he said with quiet certainty. "She survived this long." That night, Buck sat on the porch, Remington across his lap watching the road. The moon cast long shadows across the yard. Inside, Emma had insisted on reading stories to their unconscious guest. The sound of his daughter's voice, animated for the first time in months, drifted through the open window. The next morning brought Reverend Whitaker riding up in his black buggy, Bible clutched to his chest like a shield. "Heard you brought home a companion," the Reverend began. Not bothering with pleasantries, Buck continued sharpening his hunting knife. "News travels fast. This is a God-fearing community, Harlan. People talk. Let them." The Reverend shifted uncomfortably. "There's also word that you killed Jim Peters yesterday. He rode with Danny Morgan." "Self-defense. Morgan's got 12 men in his gang. Blackwater outlaws, the lot of them. They've been terrorizing ranches along the border, taking what they want." The Reverend hesitated. "They say he's particular about getting back what he considers his." Buck tested the knife's edge with his thumb. "Appreciate the warning, Reverend." "The woman," Whitaker began. "Has a name," Buck interrupted. "When she wakes to tell it, I'll let you know." After the Reverend departed, Buck stood at the bedroom door, watching the mysterious woman breathe. Her face, cleaned of blood and dirt, revealed high cheekbones and a strong jaw, a fighter's face. As he turned to leave, her eyes flickered open, deep brown and immediately alert. "Where am I?" Her voice was hoarse but clear. "Triple H Ranch. My name's Thomas Harlan. Most call me Buck." She struggled to sit up, wincing. "Why did you buy me?" The question was direct, suspicious. No gratitude, no relief, just wariness. Buck respected that. "My daughter thought you were dying," he answered honestly. "Didn't seem right to let you." Her gaze moved to Emma's doll on the pillow beside her. Something flickered across her face. Pain deeper than physical wounds. "My name is Rebecca Morgan," she said finally. "And if you're smart, you'll take me back to Dust Ridge before Danny finds me here." Buck met her gaze steadily. "I've never been accused of being smart, Miss Morgan." By the end of the week, Rebecca Morgan could stand. By the end of the second, she insisted on working. Buck found her in the barn one morning, mending a torn saddle with expert stitches. "Where'd you learn leatherwork?" he asked. Rebecca didn't look up from her task. "My father owned Crane Homestead before the war. Taught me everything. Riding, shooting, fixing what's broken." Her hands stilled. Danny was different after Shiloh. Came back with darkness in him. War changes men, Buck said, the weight of his own memories evident in his voice. It reveals them, she corrected, finally meeting his gaze. That afternoon, Buck found Rebecca teaching Emma to hold a small revolver, his wife's .31 caliber pocket pistol. "What are you doing?" he demanded. Rebecca didn't flinch at his tone. "Teaching her to survive. You won't always be there." The words struck like a physical blow. Mary's face flashed in his mind, the way he'd found her. Too late. "Her fingers too far from the trigger," Buck said finally, kneeling beside them. "Like this, Emma." Rebecca watched him adjust his daughter's grip, a silent understanding passing between the adults. In this territory, death rode with the wind. Preparation wasn't a luxury, it was survival. Later that evening, Logan and Buck sat on the porch, passing a bottle of whiskey between them as stars emerged overhead. "Morgan's men were asking about you in town today," Logan said. "3 of them, wearing Blackwater gang colors." Buck took a long pull from the bottle. "They'll come soon. We should send word to Carter. The sheriff." "Carter's got 2 deputies and a drinking problem," Buck interrupted. "This isn't a law matter anyway." Logan studied his old friend's face. "What is it then?" Buck's eyes drifted to the window where Rebecca's silhouette moved behind the curtain, helping Emma prepare for bed. "A reckoning." Logan nodded slowly. "Then you should know I already sent word to Carter anyway. Old habits from our Pinkerton days. Always have a backup plan." Buck raised an eyebrow. "Carter's not exactly the cavalry we relied on back then." "No," Logan agreed, "but he owes me. Saved his neck in that Prescott shootout last year. Said he'd keep an eye on the situation." He took the bottle back, just in case. 3 days later, Buck rode into Dust Ridge for supplies. The town fell quiet as he dismounted outside the general store, conversations dying as he passed. Inside, Mrs. Abernathy refused to meet his eyes as she filled his order. "Will there be anything else, Mr. Harlan?" she asked stiffly. "Information," Buck replied, placing an extra $1 on the counter. "Danny Morgan. Where's he holed up?" Her eyes darted nervously around the store. "Abandoned silver mine, 10 miles south of Devil's Peak. But you didn't hear it from me." As Buck loaded supplies into his saddlebags, 3 men approached from the saloon across the street. Town troublemakers. Not Morgan's gang, but trouble nonetheless. "Hey, Harlan," the tallest called. "How much for an hour with your new whore?" Buck continued securing his bags, seemingly indifferent. "Asked you a question," the man persisted, stepping closer. "We heard she's real pretty once you wash the dirt off." Buck turned, his movement deceptively casual. "Walk away," the man laughed, looking to his companions for approval. "Or what, rancher?" Buck's right hand moved with blinding speed. The Remington materialized as if conjured from air itself. The shot struck the dirt between the man's boots, throwing dust into his face. "Next one's 2 feet higher," Buck said evenly. The man's hand hovered near his own pistol. Buck's eyes, cold as winter sky, dared him to try. After a tense moment, the man backed away, cursing. Sheriff Carter appeared from the jailhouse, looking more annoyed than concerned. "Harlan, no shooting in town limits." Buck holstered his weapon. "Just clearing the air, Sheriff." Carter approached, lowering his voice. "Morgan knows where she is. Been asking all over town about the woman at Triple H. You've got trouble coming." "Wouldn't be the first time." "This is different," Carter insisted. "Morgan's not just an outlaw. He's made deals with officials in 3 counties. Got protection." Buck mounted his horse. "Then it's fortunate I'm not looking for legal remedies." "Logan sent word," Carter said, almost reluctantly. "If things get bad, well, I still remember what you both did for my brother after the war. Just keep your eyes open. I might not be able to help officially, but I don't forget debts." Buck nodded once, the closest he'd come to gratitude. As he rode out of town, Buck noticed a familiar carriage heading toward Triple H, ornate and city-made, pulled by match bay horses. His stomach tightened. He recognized that carriage. Victoria Hayes. Buck arrived back at Triple H to find Victoria's carriage already there, her driver tending the horses. Inside, Victoria sat at his kitchen table, a porcelain teacup looking absurdly delicate in the rough-hewn room. Her cream-colored dress and perfectly arranged auburn hair seemed to belong to another world entirely. Emma sat beside her, eyes wide with wonder as Victoria described the latest fashions in San Francisco. Rebecca stood by the stove, her expression unreadable. She wore one of Buck's old shirts, sleeves rolled up, and pants that Logan had altered to fit her smaller frame. The contrast between the two women couldn't have been starker. "Thomas," Victoria smiled, using his given name as she always had. "It's been too long." "3 years," Buck replied, setting his gun belt aside. "What brings you to Triple H?" Victoria's smile remained perfect. "Business, darling. The railroad's coming through Blackwater Canyon. Land prices are about to soar." She glanced around the kitchen. "Your property stands to increase tenfold in value." "Not interested in selling," Buck said flatly. "At least hear my offer," Victoria pressed. "For old time's sake." That night, Victoria stayed for dinner, charming Emma with stories of grand cities and elegant parties. She'd brought saltwater taffy from New Orleans, Emma's favorite, though Buck couldn't recall ever mentioning it to her. "I'd like to talk business," Victoria said after Emma was put to bed. Privately, they stepped onto the porch, the night air cool against their skin. Victoria moved closer than necessary. "There's silver on your land, Thomas," she said, her voice low. "The Geological Survey confirmed it last month." Buck's expression didn't change. "That's so. I represent investors who are prepared to offer 10 times market value." She placed a gloved hand on his arm. "You could give Emma the life Mary would have wanted. Education, society, future." At Mary's name, Buck's eyes hardened. "Don't," Victoria sighed. "We were engaged once, Thomas. I know you. This life," she gestured to the ranch, "it's killing you slowly. This is your chance to start over." From inside, Buck heard Rebecca's voice, soft and low, reading to Emma despite having put her to bed an hour earlier. The girl must have had another nightmare. "I appreciate the offer," Buck said finally, "but Triple H isn't for sale." Victoria's perfect composure cracked slightly. "Is it because of her, the woman you bought?" Her voice dripped with disdain. "People talk, Thomas. They say you've replaced Mary with a—" "Careful," Buck warned, his tone dangerous. Victoria collected herself, but not before Buck caught a flash of something in her eyes. Calculation, not hurt. Something had changed in Victoria Hayes, something beyond time and distance. "At least think about it. For Emma's sake," she said, her voice honey-sweet again. "My investors won't wait forever. Land is power in this territory, Thomas. Everyone has their price." Later that night, Buck found Rebecca on the back porch, staring at the stars. She'd planted lavender along the rear of the house, the seeds discovered in an old jar in the pantry. "Victoria Hayes," Rebecca said without turning. "She was important to you once." It wasn't a question, but Buck answered anyway. "We were engaged before the war." "What happened?" "I came back different. She wanted the man who left." Rebecca nodded, understanding in her silence. After a moment, she said, "There's silver in the hills behind Crane Homestead, too. It's why Danny wants the land back so badly." Buck studied her profile in the moonlight. "Is that why he sold you? For mining rights?" "Gambling debts," Rebecca corrected. "But the silver would solve all his problems. If he could get the land back." She turned to face him fully. "I found something today, under the floorboards in the storage room." She held out a tarnished uniform button. "Confederate Cavalry, Colonel's insignia. Buck took it, turning the medal in his palm. That was another life. Was it? Rebecca asked. The way you draw that Remington, that's not rancher training. After the war, I rode with Logan. We tracked men who thought themselves beyond the law, Buck said simply. The less said about those days, the better. He'd buried enough ghosts. A smile, the first he'd seen, ghosted across Rebecca's lips. I thought as much. Before Buck could respond, a flash of lightning illuminated the yard, followed by distant thunder. The air had turned heavy with the promise of rain. Storm's coming, Buck observed. It's already here, Rebecca replied, her eyes meeting his with meaning that transcended weather. The rain began shortly after midnight, pounding the roof in sheets. Buck woke to the sound of shattering glass. He reached for the Remington on his bedside table, moving silently to the hallway. Logan appeared from his room, shotgun in hand. North side, he whispered. At least 4. Buck nodded. Emma's room, Rebecca's too. A shot rang out, splintering wood near Buck's head. Return fire from Logan's shotgun illuminated the hallway in brief, blinding flashes. Morgan's men! Logan shouted over the gunfire. Buck kicked open the door to Emma's room. The window was broken, rain pouring in through shattered glass. Emma wasn't in her bed. Emma! Buck's voice broke with fear. A shot from down the hall answered him. Not a shotgun, but the distinctive crack of his wife's .31 caliber pocket pistol. Buck rushed toward Rebecca's room. Inside, Rebecca stood at the broken window, the small pistol steady in her hands. Emma was behind her, pressed against the wall. On the ground outside lay a man, motionless in the mud. Are you hurt? Buck demanded. Rebecca shook her head. They were trying to get in. Emma came to warn me. Buck gathered his daughter in his arms, heart hammering. You did good, sweetheart. The firefight lasted less than 10 minutes. By the time it ended, 2 of Morgan's men lay dead in the yard. The others had retreated into the storm. They'll be back, Logan said, binding a graze wound on his arm. With more men. Rebecca sat at the kitchen table, the pocket pistol still in her hand. Emma had finally fallen asleep against her shoulder. I should leave, Rebecca said quietly. This is my fight, not yours. Buck cleaned his Remington methodically, checking the cylinder. Danny Morgan made it mine when he sent men to my home, where my daughter sleeps. You don't understand, Rebecca insisted. Danny won't stop. Ever. The land, the silver. Me. It's about control with him. Buck set the revolver down and met her gaze. Then it's time someone taught him about losing control. The morning after the raid, Victoria's carriage returned. Her face registered shock at the bullet holes in the porch railing, the broken windows covered with boards. My God, Thomas, she gasped. What happened? Uninvited guests, Buck replied coldly. Victoria's eyes darted to Rebecca, who stood in the doorway, Emma's small hand in hers. This is because of her, isn't it? The Morgan woman. Buck's expression hardened. Say your piece and go, Victoria. We're busy today. The offer still stands, Victoria pressed, but not for long. My investors need an answer by week's end. As she turned to leave, her silk handbag caught on a nail, spilling its contents across the porch. Rebecca moved to help gather the items, pausing as she picked up a folded paper. Buck saw the recognition in Rebecca's eyes before she quickly handed the paper back to Victoria, who snatched it away, flustered. After Victoria departed, Rebecca found Buck in the barn, saddling horses. She's working with Danny, Rebecca said without preamble. Buck continued cinching the saddle. That's a serious accusation. I saw a letter in her purse, Danny's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. Buck turned to face her. Victoria Hayes is many things, but she doesn't consort with outlaws. People change, Rebecca said. War reveals them, remember? What did the letter say? Buck asked, his voice carefully controlled. Only saw part of it. Something about silver rights and the girl as leverage. Your daughter, Buck. They're planning to use Emma. Buck's jaw tightened. Victoria was always ambitious. Even before the war, she had plans for land expansion through her father's railroad connections. His hands stilled on the saddle. After I returned, broken in ways she couldn't fix, she married a banker from San Francisco. He died last year, leaving her wealthy, connected, and ruthless, Rebecca finished. The perfect partner for someone like Danny. Buck's face darkened as the truth settled into his bones. Logan's in town gathering supplies. We need to prepare. That evening, Rebecca packed her few belongings into a small sack. Emma watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. You can't go, the child pleaded. Pa needs you. I need you. Rebecca knelt, brushing golden curls from Emma's forehead. Sometimes leaving is the only way to protect the ones you love. Then you don't really love us, Emma said with the brutal honesty of childhood. Because Pa says you never leave family behind. The words struck Rebecca like physical blows. She pulled Emma close, inhaling the scent of soap and innocence. Your Pa is a wise man, braver than me. Stay, Emma whispered. Please. Before Rebecca could answer, hoofbeats thundered in the yard. Logan's voice shouted a warning, followed by gunfire. Buck burst through the door, rifle in hand. Morgan's here, at least 12 riders. His eyes fell on Rebecca's packed bag, understanding darkening his features. Get to the cellar, both of you. I can fight, Rebecca insisted. Not your battle, Buck said roughly. It never was yours either, Rebecca countered, grabbing the Winchester from above the mantel. Yet here we are. Before Buck could argue further, the front window exploded inward. Outside, a voice called through a speaking trumpet. Harlan, send out my sister and the girl, and the rest of you can live. Buck's blood turned to ice. Emma. Rebecca's face went pale. He wants Emma, too? Logan appeared at the back door, bleeding from a cut above his eye. They've surrounded the house. Victoria's with them. Buck's world tilted on its axis. Victoria? She's standing right beside Morgan, Logan confirmed grimly, all dressed up like she's at a Sunday social, and I caught a glimpse of Sheriff Carter and his deputies moving into position in the tree line. My message got through. Rebecca's eyes met Buck's. Now, do you believe me? The firefight erupted in earnest then. Bullets splintered wood and shattered the remaining windows. Buck, Logan, and Rebecca returned fire from different positions, careful to keep Emma protected between them in the center of the house. I count 15, Logan shouted over the gunfire. Too many, Buck agreed. We need a plan. Rebecca checked the Winchester's ammunition. The tunnel. Both men turned to her in confusion. When I was exploring, I found a root cellar that extends beyond the house, Rebecca explained quickly. It comes out near the creek, probably built during Apache raids. Buck's eyes widened with recognition. Mary's escape route. I'd forgotten. I can take Emma through, Rebecca offered. Get her to safety while you hold them here. Buck hesitated, torn between keeping his daughter close and creating a diversion to ensure her escape. Trust me, Thomas, Rebecca said softly, using his given name for the first time. The decision crystallized. Buck knelt before Emma. Go with Rebecca. Stay quiet as a mouse. I'll find you by the big oak past the creek. Promise me. Promise, Emma whispered, terrified but brave. Buck turned to Rebecca. Keep her safe. Rebecca's hand found his, squeezing once. I will, with my life. As Rebecca and Emma disappeared through the cellar door, Buck and Logan prepared for their last stand. They had limited ammunition and overwhelming odds. Just like Sharpsburg, Logan said with grim humor. We survived that, Buck reminded him. Barely. Outside, Danny Morgan's patience was wearing thin. "Last chance, Harlan. Send them out now." Buck took a deep breath and shouted back, "Come and get them yourself, if you've got the spine for it." The assault that followed was furious. Morgan's men charged the house from multiple directions. Buck and Logan fired methodically, making each shot count. 3 attackers fell before they reached the porch, 2 more at the doorway, but numbers were telling. A bullet caught Logan in the shoulder, spinning him around. Buck took a graze across his temple, blood running into his eyes. Through the haze of gun smoke and blood, Buck saw Victoria standing beside a wagon, watching the assault with clinical detachment. The final betrayal. As Morgan's men breached the house, Buck prepared for his final moments. He'd go down fighting, buying time for Emma and Rebecca to escape. Then a massive explosion rocked the yard. Fire blossomed where the stable had stood, sending Morgan's horses into a panic. In the confusion, riders appeared from the tree line. Sheriff Carter and 6 deputies, guns blazing. Carter had positioned his men strategically, just as Logan had hoped. "U.S. Marshal," Carter shouted, badge glinting in the sunlight. "Drop your weapons!" Buck used the distraction to dispatch the 2 attackers nearest him. Logan, despite his wound, managed to subdue another. In the chaos, Buck spotted Danny Morgan himself, a tall man with a familial resemblance to Rebecca, wearing a black duster. He was dragging a struggling Victoria toward a horse. Buck pursued them through the smoke, Remington steady despite his exhaustion. "Morgan!" The outlaw turned, shoving Victoria aside. His hand dropped to his gun. The distance between them stretched like eternity. Buck knew this moment, had lived it countless times during the war in his days as a manhunter. The space between heartbeats when life and death hung in perfect balance. Morgan drew first, his revolver clearing leather with practiced speed. Buck fired a split second later. Morgan staggered backward, surprise registering on his face as crimson spread across his chest. His unfired gun slipped from nerveless fingers. "She was never yours to take," Morgan gasped, blood bubbling at his lips. "The land, the silver, they were never yours either," Buck replied, watching as the light faded from the outlaw's eyes. Victoria stood frozen, her perfect composure shattered. "Thomas, I can explain." Buck's cold gaze silenced her. "Sheriff Carter will want to hear that explanation." "It was business," Victoria said desperately. "Nothing personal. The silver deposit runs through both properties. Morgan had the mining connections. I had the railroad ties. We needed Emma as insurance you'd sell." Buck's face hardened to granite. "You'd use a child? Mary's child?" "You weren't supposed to fight back," Victoria hissed, her elegant facade crumbling. "You were supposed to be reasonable." "Then you never knew me at all," Buck said quietly, turning away as Carter's deputies led her toward the wagon with the other prisoners. When the gun smoke cleared, 4 of Morgan's men were dead, the rest captured. Victoria Hayes sat handcuffed in Carter's wagon, her elegant dress smeared with dust and blood. Buck rode hard for the oak tree beyond the creek, fear clutching his heart. Had Rebecca and Emma made it? Had Morgan's men found them? The ancient oak loomed ahead, its massive branches casting deep shadows in the afternoon light. Buck dismounted, calling softly, "Emma? Rebecca?" Silence answered him. His heart sank. Then a small voice called, "Pa?" Emma emerged from behind the trunk, running toward him. Buck fell to his knees, gathering her in his arms, breathing in her scent, reassuring himself she was real and unharmed. Relief crashed through him like a physical force, nearly robbing him of breath. "Rebecca helped me hide," Emma explained, pointing to the tree's massive roots. "She told me to stay hidden no matter what. She gave me her special necklace to be brave." Buck looked down to see a tarnished silver pendant hanging around Emma's neck, the one Rebecca had found under the floorboards. His relief turned to concern. "Where is she now, sweetheart?" Emma's face clouded. "She heard shooting. Said she had to help you. Buck's blood ran cold. When, Emma? When did she leave? After the big boom, Emma said, her small hand clutching his. She said she couldn't let you face the monsters alone. Buck lifted Emma onto his horse, settling her before him. Hold tight, sweetheart. We need to hurry. They found Rebecca halfway to the house, collapsed beneath a cottonwood. Blood soaked her side where a bullet had torn through her. Her face was ashen, lips colorless, but her chest still rose and fell in shallow breaths. Buck's throat constricted as he knelt beside her. This woman who had endured so much, chains, betrayal, bullets, had risked everything to return to a fight that wasn't hers. For Emma, for him. Stubborn woman, Buck muttered, gathering her in his arms. You were supposed to stay with Emma. Rebecca's eyes fluttered open. Couldn't let you have all the glory. Save your strength, Buck ordered, lifting her onto his horse. But even as he said it, he felt something warm spread through his chest, an emotion he'd thought buried with Mary. Back at Triple H, Doc Wilson worked through the night to remove the bullet and stop the bleeding. Buck kept vigil, Emma asleep in his lap. He hadn't left Rebecca's side, watching each breath as if his will alone could keep her tethered to life. Logan, arm in a sling, brought coffee as dawn broke. She's tough. Like someone else I know. Buck stared at Rebecca's pale face. She came back. Could have run, started over somewhere. But she came back. For Emma, Logan suggested. Buck shook his head slowly. For family. 3 days later, Rebecca awoke properly. The first face she saw was Emma's, curled beside her on the bed. You stayed, Rebecca whispered. Always, Emma replied solemnly. Buck entered, relief washing over his features. Welcome back. As Rebecca recovered, news arrived from town. Victoria Hayes and her remaining conspirators would stand trial for their role in the attempted land grab. The silver mine on Triple H land was confirmed, rich enough to secure Emma's future for generations. Carter sent word, Logan told Buck one evening as they repaired the bullet-riddled porch. Victoria's talking. Turns out she and Morgan had a scheme going back a year, buying up land with silver deposits all along the territory. They've got warrants out for 3 county officials who were in on it. And Rebecca's land? Buck asked. Crane Homestead deed was among Morgan's papers. Never actually sold it, just used it as collateral for loans. It's still legally hers. 1 month after the gunfight, Buck took Rebecca to a ridge overlooking the valley. In the distance stood a familiar homestead, abandoned and weathered by years of neglect. Crane Homestead, Rebecca breathed, recognition and pain mingling in her voice. Buck handed her a folded document. Deed's in your name now. Carter found it among Danny's things. Rebecca's hands trembled as she accepted the paper. Why show me this? Because you have a choice, Buck said simply. That land is yours by right. You can go back, rebuild what was taken. Rebecca stared at the distant homestead, then back at Triple H behind them. Emma was visible in the yard, playing with a new puppy Logan had found. Or, she asked softly. Buck's weathered hand found hers. Or you can stay. Help me raise a strong girl. Build something new. Rebecca's fingers intertwined with his. I was in chains when you found me. We all wear chains of some kind, Buck replied. Mine were grief and guilt. Yours were steel and betrayal. But chains can be broken. Rebecca looked down at their joined hands. And what would you call this? A rare smile crossed Buck's face. I believe some might call it family. Rebecca leaned into his strength, her decision made without words. Behind them, Emma's laughter carried on the wind, the sound of a future neither had dared imagine just months before. That evening, Buck visited the small family cemetery behind the orchard. Mary's grave stood beneath an apple tree that bloomed pink each spring. He placed a bouquet of lavender on the stone. She has a mother now, he said quietly, and I've found my honor again. In the distance, Rebecca waited respectfully with Emma. As Buck rejoined them, the three walked toward the house together, silhouettes against the setting sun. 6 months later, the Triple H ranch had transformed. The bullet holes were repaired, the windows replaced. A new wing had been added to the house, Buck and Rebecca's wedding gift to each other. Fields of lavender now stretched behind the barn, their scent carried on the breeze. Carter visited occasionally, bringing news from town and staying for dinner. Logan had built himself a cabin nearby, claiming he needed his own space but never straying far from the family that had become his own. Buck taught Emma to ride properly now, Rebecca watching from the corral fence, her hand resting on the slight swell of her belly. New life growing where once there had been only chains and loss. Each evening, Buck would stand on the porch, watching the sun set over land that now truly felt like home. The ghost that had haunted him since the war had finally found rest. The man who had once tracked killers across 3 states had found something worth protecting instead of avenging. From a distant ridge, a lone rider watched through a spyglass, a former associate of Morgan's, nursing grievances and planning vengeance. The observer tucked the glass away and turned his horse south, toward the Mexican border. Some vendettas never truly ended. Some chains remained unbroken, but that was a story for another day. For now, the Triple H Ranch stood peaceful in the fading light, a sanctuary built from courage, sacrifice, and love, the strongest bonds of all.